Now, joining me on the broadcast today is Miss Veena Sikri. She is former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh from New Delhi. Ma'am, first of all, a very warm welcome to DD India News. Ma'am, you've been there and you know how things function there. We told our viewers that Bangladesh right now is on the edge. Security tightened ahead of special tribunal's verdict against Sheikh Hasina. What's your assessment of this entire scenario? What do you expect as far as the verdict is concerned?
Well, I think, first of all, the verdict is definitely going to be a tough one. They expect the death penalty for Sheikh Hasina. But I think much more than just the verdict, because much more than the verdict, two things are going to happen. Firstly, this verdict was supposed to be delivered on the 13th of November. But because, at the behest of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, a total lockdown, a total band had been called for in Bangladesh, in Dhaka and all other areas. And this was remarkably successful. In fact, there was a complete lockdown. Nobody moved on the streets.
Right.
Were closed, schools were closed. I think this has unnerved the Bangladesh government to see that despite the Awami League being a party whose activities have been banned by the Yunus interim regime, the support for this party fully exists. If anything, it has grown. So this is one aspect that is very important to take into account. So obviously the Yunus regime is nervous about tomorrow. The army, I think, has said that they will not be taking any action. They have more or less withdrawn from the situation. But the Yunus regime has asked the police to fire on any civilians who emerge. So I expect tomorrow will also be very much a lockdown situation. But I think more interestingly, more importantly, if we take a broader picture of what is happening in Dhaka for the last 1 year, we can see that the Mohammed Yunus regime has not received the kind of support it thought it would get. And when I say the Mohammed Yunus regime, I'm talking about the one institution that is behind the regime, which is the Jamaat-e-Islami. The Jamaat-e-Islami thought that with the Awami League out of the picture, and the BNP is more or less being pushed aside by the Jamaat-e-Islami, their erstwhile political partner, they thought that they would get all the popularity, but that really has not happened.
And what do you think the reason behind this is?
Sorry, I think the reason is that, first of all, the complete economic debilitation of the economy. Factories have closed, their trade with India, well, in terms of exports, more exports are going in terms of foodstuffs and other material. But what they need for factories, for their inputs, for their ready-made garment exports, all that, the regime is trying to ask the factory owners to import from other countries, from Pakistan, from Brazil and so on. This is proving much more difficult. So many factories have closed down. People are unemployed. There's high inflation. No investment has come in at all in the last 1 year to Bangladesh. So this is the economic situation. Politically, I think the Yunus regime has not at all been able to deliver on what they promised, talking about full democracy. They said that the previous 3 elections under Sheikh Hasina were not really free and fair elections. And today, they are planning exactly the same thing. They don't want the Awami League to participate in the next elections. And I think the people of Bangladesh are very angry with this. First of all, Awami League support is a good 30 to 40% of the population, possibly even more now. The BNP, the other major party, also has a very large support. But that party too is being sidelined. Everything to favor the Jamaat-e-Islami. And I think the 2 major parties, if you try to sideline them, then the people are going to be angry, and that's what's happened. Now, the third point I'd like to say is what you said in the very beginning of your broadcast, that this was a students' uprising. I think that is the first thing we have to realize it's not true. This was not a spontaneous students' uprising in any way. It was a pre-planned regime change operation. And aim of the so-called quota reformed, some students had come to join in the beginning, but very quickly when the Supreme Court of Bangladesh, even while Sheikh Hasina was there, gave its verdict, finally abolishing the quotas for freedom fighters' children and grandchildren, and leaving only 5%. So then the students said, no, well, now we have nothing to, no complaint against the government, any other issue we'll talk. So this was really a regime change operation planned with Pakistan as the conduit through the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is always Pakistan's partner. And they thought that very quickly they'd be able to get the support of the people But today, there's not a single student in support of this government. In
Okay.
fact, on the 13th of November,
Okay.
again, the same day that the verdict was to be delivered, when the Yunus regime announced a cancellation of their decision to put music teachers and singing teachers and PT teachers in every
All right.
school, college, and university, the students erupted. They were angry. They said, "No, we don't want." The Yunus regime said, "Instead of this, we will have religious teachers."
Fine.
And the students said, "No, we believe in culture. Our
Okay.
culture is my identity." So I think that this is a huge problem that
Okay.
the
I,
Bangladesh people are
I,
facing.
so the reason why Muhammad Yunus is not getting support in the country, according to you, is that people are angry, and then there is an economic dent on the economic front, and then promises were failed miserably. Also, do you, like Sheikh Hasina supporters say, believe that the charges against her are politically motivated, and why?
Well, I think the charges against her certainly seem to be politically motivated. Why I'm saying so is that there is a lot of hearsay about what actually happened. Between, let's say, July, August of last year. Now, in the beginning, at that time, I remember I was following the media very carefully in Bangladesh. They announced that maybe some 300 students had been killed. Very soon, this figure went up to 800 and then it went up to 1400. Now, that's one thing. So, nobody really knows. There's been no inquiry on what happened. Secondly, from the minute that Sheikh Hasina left the country on 5th of August and 8th of August, the Yunus was sworn in. And in the subsequent weeks, so right from 5th of August onwards, there's a huge stream of violence inflicted on the people of Bangladesh by the Yunus regime, by the Jamaat-e-Islami, and all their cohorts. The Islami Chhatra Shibir, the students' wing, and all others. We know that there was a serious attack on the Hindus, the Christians, the Buddhists, the Sufis, the Ahmadiyas. All the minorities were brutally attacked, and that's continuing since then. But in addition to that, there was a huge attack on the Awami League people. They were jailed. The media has been completely clamped down on. There is no freedom of the media. All the media boards have been changed. Senior journalists are in jail with no charges. The Awami Leaguers in jail for 1 year with no charges. Several have even died while they are in jail. So all this has created a tremendous aura of fear and uncertainty.
Okay.
And the people who have died under the Yunus regime in the violence unleashed by the Yunus regime and its cohort, they are not being looked at all. This question is not even being raised.
Okay.
And in fact, the Yunus regime has taken indemnity against itself, saying that anybody like ourselves or anybody who took part in the July-August uprising,
Right.
nothing can be done against them.
Okay.
So people don't believe in what Muhammad Yunus...
Right. And I understand what you're saying. Ma'am, please allow me to read a tweet. Awami League has put out a tweet. It's a very long tweet, but I'll just read the first sentence. It says, over the past 15 months, Bangladesh's financial, social and educational pillars have collapsed one after another. Hundreds of factories have shut down. Millions of workers have lost their jobs. Exports have nearly come to a halt and no new development initiative exists. Pretty much what you were saying on the economic front. How do you react to this tweet? This is a long tweet, by the way. I just read the first sentence.
Yeah. No, I think that what the tweet is saying is absolutely correct. This reflects very much the great disappointment of the people. That the people are so disappointed, disheartened that this should have happened because, they had all that hope. When this whole quota reform movement started, I told you that some students, regular students did come out thinking, oh, wow, this is an occasion, we should get rid of the quotas. But when they realized what was happening, that this was a politically motivated campaign, nothing run by students at all, they withdrew from it. And today, those very students are campaigning against the Yunus regime. So there is no political freedom, there is no economic stability, there is no economic growth. So what do the people of Bangladesh have to look for? And in addition to that, let me make one point that is so serious because it affects us in India very, very seriously. And that is because of the Pakistani being a conduit and then suddenly jumping into action in Bangladesh, restoring something which for 50 years had not happened. Economic ties between Bangladesh and Pakistan, military ties between Pakistan and Bangladesh. The army number 2 has visited, the deputy prime minister and foreign minister of Pakistan has visited Bangladesh. These ties have jumped up to such an extent that now the Lashkar Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, and their cohorts are visiting. And today, I don't know if you've seen, but there is such a strong report that actually a lot of this ammunition that was smuggled into India, that we know that 3 tons of it were found when we had the Red Fort blast on Monday. And now they're saying that even 12 tons more has come in through Bangladesh. And that, this has all gone in different parts of the country and all kinds. So Bangladesh is being Pakistan's cat's paw. They are doing whatever Pakistan is telling to doing and harming the security and all other interests of India. I can relate to this very clearly because when I was High Commissioner in Bangladesh and Begum Khaleda was the Prime Minister, these were the kind of relations that were there at that time between Pakistan and Bangladesh. And the Pakistan military was at that time also exerting a very close control on the Bangladesh army, which they're doing now. They're trying to embed themselves with the Bangladesh army. So I think that this is something of great concern, that the way in which Bangladesh is being used by Pakistan to harm India's security interests and to launch attacks on India through Bangladesh, taking advantage of the border, which is much more porous in the case of Bangladesh than it is in the case of the Western sector. So I think these are all the issues that we should be very serious about. And I think that one of the most important things that we have to focus on if we want to stop this kind of situation building up in Bangladesh is to ensure that the forthcoming elections do take place as promised on time in February, and that these elections are free, fair, inclusive, and credible. If they try to leave out the Awami League, the Jatiya Party, and all major parties of Bangladesh, these elections will lead to further instability and further strife in Bangladesh. We do know that many people who are today advisors in the Yunus regime, members of the Islami Andolan Bangladesh, members of Hizb ut-Tahrir, you mentioned Hizb ut-Tahrir, and others, they have spoken openly of Sharia law in Bangladesh, of having a caliphate in Bangladesh. And they say, even if there's civil war, we want to insist on a caliphate and Sharia law. So the kind of people who are in power today in Bangladesh have a totally different agenda from what you will think that a Nobel laureate like Mohammed Yunus as the interim chief. But the amazing part is that the Western countries are taking no notice of this. And even just recently, there was a minister from the UK government who came and met Mohammed Yunus. And when he told her that Awami League will not participate in the election, she just kept quiet. I can't imagine a democracy like the UK believes in free and fair elections and then saying not at all blinking an eyelid.
Right. In fact, ma'am, last month, Awami League filed a petition with the Hague-based ICC accusing the Yunus-led interim administration of crimes against humanity, including killings and arbitrary arrests of its members. But all in all, I want to ask, what is the impact of all this on Bangladesh? Where is all this taking the country to?
I will say that unless the people of Bangladesh, supported by countries like India, and getting the support even of the West, which is, in the beginning, they've been closely involved in all the events in Bangladesh, they must now know that the situation is very serious, that the situation needs free, fair, inclusive, and participatory elections. And this must be the effort of all. The people of Bangladesh now want it. They have shown clearly they want it. I would say that even, the efforts by the Yunus regime to have a July national charter, and then the efforts for them to have various commissions of reform, and then the effort to have a referendum on the reforms before the elections, all that has sort of come to naught because the presidential order issued on 13th of November, a few days ago, said clearly that the referendum and the elections will be held on the same day. So if the people want a referendum, if they want any changes in the constitution, they have to wait till the elections are held. So I think that we have to again and again focus on these free, fair and inclusive elections, and we have to point out as to what Pakistan is trying to do to harm the stability of our region, to harm the stability and security of India, and for their own narrow purposes, they are misusing the people of Bangladesh for this purpose. And I can tell you, the vast majority of the people of Bangladesh do not want these kind of close relations with Pakistan. They have not forgotten the liberation war. Pakistan wants Bangladesh to forget the liberation war.
Right.
They want them to just, even in the July National Charter, the effort was not to include any reference to the Liberation War. But that fortunately did not happen. There is a reference there. And we know that more and more the people of Bangladesh remember what the values, the younger generation remembers the values of the Liberation War, and they want those to prevail, not this kind of religious-minded Sharia law and, very, very narrow percentage of people. But effort has to be to make sure that the elections are free, fair, inclusive, and participatory.
Right.
Our government has made many statements on this, and I think it is up to us now to make sure that with the support of the world community, this actually happens. We know that the NSA of Bangladesh, Dr. Khalilur Rahman, who's actually an American citizen, but coming to Bangladesh, India in the coming week. And maybe there will be some talks. Let's see how those talks go.
Definitely. The situation is really tight and security is tight as well. We'll have to wait and see what will happen tomorrow, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining in on DD India News. Thank you.